week's general election?
Well, I cannot tell a lie. It came up again and again. And obviously I and other people who were canvassing and candidates in that election, we handled those and surfed those as best we could. But there does come a point whenever, decisions are going to have to be made. And I think Alistair has already indicated that he will be moving soon in relation to the dual mandate. And I think in that context as well, he should make a clear decision in relation to the leadership. When I made my decision about the dual mandate, it was very clear that the party couldn't really be led from Westminster. Certainly I don't think the party can be led into an assembly election from Westminster. And if Alistair thinks that just resigning from the Assembly deals with the questions, well, it won't, because these questions will all surface again once he resigns from the Assembly. And as we move towards an Assembly election, the questions won't go away. And therefore, I think if we're going to be in a better position to fight the election, then the leadership needs to change. And also, I think Alistair needs to fulfil his best role now, which is serving as MP for South Belfast in what is still going to be a very busy Parliament with serious issues confronting us in terms of the Human Rights Act, in terms of Europe, and Northern Ireland's position in Europe is something that Alistair has spoken passionately about. So Alistair has many other things that he can be using his talents on and pursuing his own passionate priorities without having himself and the party constantly stuck on this question of the leadership.
So just to be clear, Mr Durkan, you're saying that Dr McDonnell needs to make a clear decision. You are saying he needs to step down from the leadership of the SDLP.
I think the party needs to know that we are not going into the next election being led into an assembly election from Westminster. So I don't believe that just resolving the question of the dual mandate resolves that issue. I think people want to see the party with a new leadership going forward into the Assembly election in circumstances where, the other thing we kept hearing on the doorsteps is people are so disillusioned and disappointed by Stormont. We now have 8 years of rule by Sinn Féin and the DUP. People aren't very impressed. In fact, people are frustrated and are angry. And they want to see that challenged in a cogent, competent way and in a passionate way. And I think that means that people want to see new leadership in the SDLP that will be going forward with a very strong platform into the next election.
You mentioned there a moment ago that this was an issue that came up on the doorsteps when you were campaigning for last week's election. Are you saying that potential SDLP voters said to you very clearly that Alistair McDonnell's leadership was an issue for them and they might consider not voting for the SDLP while he continued to be leader?
Yes, it was a real issue and we had to convince a lot of people. We were able to point to all sorts of policy positions of the party. We were able to point to, in my own constituency, obviously my record as an MP, but we had to work on people. But I'm not sure we brought everybody round, because many people told us that they were staying away because they weren't impressed with politics in general, and that includes the criticism and the frustration and the disappointment about what is happening at Stormont or not happening at Stormont, but it also includes then a particular disappointment that the SDLP wasn't cutting through more strongly in that context, and a lot of that was put down to the question of leadership.
Dr McDonnell, of course, would say, critically, under his leadership, the SDLP held on to its 3 seats. And he's talked a lot about bringing on new talent, bringing on new faces. He says on the programme tonight, he doesn't want to quit while the job isn't fully done. Do you not concede that in certain areas he actually has moved the party forward?
I have no point in conceding any strengths that there are in the party. I have no problem in conceding anything in relation to the strength of Alistair's contribution. But the fact is, I'm not going to allow recognition of those strengths to delude me about the other problems that are there, nor should anybody else be deluded about the serious problems that are there. And the fact is, the party should be coming through more strongly in the current context. Yes, we held on to our 3 Westminster seats, and that was a good performance, but it also means that we need to respect the mandate we got for those 3 Westminster seats by fulfilling our mandate fully. So that means we need to answer the clear frustrations that are there around the dual mandate sooner rather than later.
You have just called on this programme for Alistair McDonnell to step down. Two former deputy leaders, party grandees Seamus Mallon and Breeze Rogers, have also said he should go, and go now. How quickly do you believe he needs to act?
Well, I'm saying this isn't just a call that Alistair should go and go now. It's that Alistair should use the mandate that he got last week to fulfil to his best ability the job in Westminster, and that will be an important job. And some of the issues coming forward in Westminster are issues.
When does he need to step down as leader? That's the critical question I'm asking you.
Well, that is a matter for him to decide. I'm not dictating the timetable of anything else. I'm not setting myself up to be the judge in all of this. But what I cannot do is allow my responsible silence to be misconstrued in any way, that I'm indifferent about the questions that are really worrying a lot of people in the party.
Well, Dr McDonnell has made it clear that he has no intention of stepping aside at this time. He says on this programme tonight that he doesn't want to get involved in a beauty contest, that he has a job to do, and he's not going anywhere. So he doesn't seem to be listening to the feedback that he's receiving from senior members of the party, and apparently from the grassroots as well.
Well, that may be so, but people are at least very clear now as to what feedback he is getting on that score. And I know Alistair is someone who is committed. He is determined. In that sense, he's not a quitter. But nobody is saying, right, that's it, Alistair, it's over. It's a matter of saying, let's be realistic about what the party, as the party, needs to do. What is it that the public want from the SDLP in the Assembly election next year? They want a strong, robust platform. They want to know that we will go into that campaign fighting it on policies that really matter, on policies that are credible, and we will be taking part in all the debates to the fullest that we possibly can. And I don't believe that party activists believe that that's what we will be looking forward to if Alistair doesn't make a decision to allow the party to move on, and also to allow Alistair to move on and concentrate at things that he's more comfortable in and much more passionate about than he appears on some of the leadership issues that he has to contend with.
Well, here's the critical issue then. Can this, in your view, wait until the party conference in November? Or do you think there needs to be a special conference convened to deal with the matter of his leadership between now in November? Because as we understand it, that's what several key members of the party believe needs to happen. Do you agree that that is the best way forward?
Well, I would have been among those who would have believed that an indication by Alistair that he wouldn't be pursuing the leadership at the next conference would have been sufficient. In current circumstances, I'm no longer persuaded of that, and I think Alistair needs to move even more decisively and earlier.
And if he doesn't do that, would you join with those voices who are calling for a special leadership conference?
Well, I don't think that's for me to be talking about what we may or may not do inside the party or under the party constitution on the BBC or anything else. It is just in circumstances where other people have spoken out, where questions have been asked about the responsible silence that and the measured position that some of us have taken. I just want to be clear. I'm not getting into a prolonged debate. I'm not going to be giving running commentary on any of this. I am making my position clear for the record, but I'm not trying to stake out a line that other people should be following inside the party.
If there was a vacancy, would you consider relocating from Westminster to Stormont to take up the job again?
No, I wouldn't. I made it clear when I made my decision. I made a decision according to when the electoral cycle fell, so I had to make the decision for Westminster. And, you know, people say in soccer and other sporting terms, you know, that a good adage is don't go back. I think the party needs to move on, and I don't think the party would be moving on to confront the newer challenges if it moved back to my leadership.
And is there, in your view, a natural successor behind whom the party could unite?
A leadership contest in the SDLP would be invigorating at this stage, and I think it is something that would be something that would raise the morale of the membership of the party, and also, I think, appeal again to the interest of voters who are switching off.
Just a final question to you. What is your final parting message to Alistair McDonnell if he's watching this tonight?
I think the three of us who are elected to Westminster have full-time jobs to do, at Westminster in a Parliament where we see the Tories are going to move on things like the Human Rights Act. There's going to be the whole question of the European referendum, an issue that Alistair is so passionate about. There's going to be the details of what's going to follow in relation to further welfare cuts, particularly using the welfare cap that only the SDLP opposed in the last Parliament.
So he's useful as an MP in Westminster, but is of no further use as leader of the SDLP?
Well, I'm not saying anything about anybody that doesn't conform with decisions I made about myself. One thing I am not is a hypocrite. I made clear judgments in relation to the party leadership a number of years ago. I made clear judgments in relation to the dual mandate. I haven't changed my mind on those judgments. So I'm addressing those issues as fairly to a colleague as I did to myself.